She folded shirts with care, smiled at the customers. No one asked about her past. Until one afternoon, a small metal slid from her purse. Silver, shining, and the manager whispered, "Ma'am, is this yours?" She just nodded, because the stories behind that metal weren't for sale. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories about hidden heroes whose valor remains quietly tucked away until fate reveals their truth, consider subscribing for more content that explores how the greatest courage often walks among us unrecognized. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of Second Chance's thrift store in Millbrook, Oregon, casting long shadows across the carefully organized clothing racks where Dorothy Williams worked with the methodical precision that had defined her approach to every task since returning from her third deployment to Afghanistan 18 months earlier. At 34, she moved through the donated clothing with gentle efficiency, her small hands smoothing wrinkles from children's shirts and ensuring that every item was properly sized, cleaned, and displayed for customers who depended on affordable clothing for their families. Her position at the thrift store provided the quiet anonymity she had sought after medical retirement from the Army, where 20 years of service had included deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and numerous training missions that had tested every aspect of her capabilities as a combat engineer and explosive ordnance disposal specialist. The civilian work environment offered structure and purpose without the intensity or recognition that had characterized military service and left psychological scars that made public attention uncomfortable. The customers who frequented Second Chances knew that as the reliable volunteer who arrived precisely at 9 a.m. every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, spending 6 hours sorting donations, helping customers find needed items, and maintaining the store's inventory with attention to detail that impressed the manager and other volunteers who had come to depend on her systematic approach to retail operations. "Could you help Mrs. Henderson find winter coats for her grandchildren?" called out Sarah Martinez, the store manager whose background in social work had taught her to recognize when people needed assistance that extended beyond simple retail transactions. "She's looking for sizes 8 and 10, something warm but not too expensive." That looked up from the rack of women's blouses she had been organizing by size and color, offering the gentle smile that had become her trademark among customers who appreciated her patient assistance with finding appropriate clothing for their family's needs. "Of course, Sarah. Mrs. Henderson, let's look at what we have in children's outerwear." The interaction reflected the caring approach that had made it valuable to the store's mission of providing affordable clothing to families struggling with economic challenges in a rural Oregon community where employment opportunities were limited and many residents lived on fixed incomes that made new clothing purchases difficult. What the customers and volunteers didn't know was that Dot's careful attention to helping families find needed clothing reflected the same systematic approach to mission accomplishment that had characterized her military service, where attention to detail and genuine concern for others had earned respect from soldiers whose lives depended on her technical competence and dedication to duty. Her background as an explosive ordnance disposal specialist had required perfect precision under extreme pressure, where mistakes meant death for herself and the soldiers she was responsible for protecting from improvised explosive devices that Taliban forces used to terrorize coalition forces and Afghan civilians attempting to cooperate with American reconstruction efforts. The psychological skills required for EOD work, remaining calm under pressure, systematic problem-solving, and acceptance of life-threatening responsibility, had translated well to civilian work that required patience, attention to detail, and genuine care for customers who often faced financial stress and personal challenges that made shopping for basic necessities difficult. "Mrs. Henderson, I found several coats that should work for your grandchildren," Tut said, carrying armloads of winter clothing to the checkout counter. Prices were kept intentionally low to ensure accessibility for families with limited resources. "This one has good insulation and should fit your grandson perfectly." Mrs. Henderson examined the coats with the careful attention of someone who needed to make every dollar count, her appreciation evident as she recognized both the quality of the items and the thoughtful assistance she had received from someone who understood the importance of finding exactly what was needed within a strict budget. "You always find exactly what I need," Mrs. Henderson said with genuine gratitude. "I don't know how you do it, but you have a gift for helping people find just the right things." The compliment reflected customer recognition of Dot's unusual ability to match available merchandise with specific customer needs, suggesting an analytical approach to retail that exceeded normal volunteer capabilities and indicated systematic training in problem-solving and resource management. As Mrs. Henderson completed her purchase and prepared to leave, she paused at the checkout counter where Dot was processing the transaction with the same methodical precision that characterized all her work at the store. "Have you ever considered working in social services?" Mrs. Henderson asked. "You have such a natural ability to help people, and you understand what families need. You could probably do a lot of good in a professional helping position." Dot's response carried the polite deflection that had become automatic when customers or volunteers suggested career changes that would require public recognition or professional credentials that might draw attention to her background and military service. "I'm happy working here, Mrs. Henderson. Helping families find what they need is rewarding, and this store serves an important purpose in our community." The response satisfied Mrs. Henderson while avoiding discussion of career background or qualifications that might lead to questions about military service and combat experience that Dot preferred to keep private as she adjusted to civilian life that operated according to different priorities and values. After Mrs. Henderson left, Dot returned to organizing clothing donations that had arrived that morning, including several boxes of items from an estate sale that required careful sorting to identify items suitable for store display versus those that needed additional cleaning or repair before being offered to customers. The systematic approach she applied to donation processing reflected military training in logistics and resource management, where efficient organization and accurate inventory control determined mission success under conditions that required perfect execution of administrative procedures supporting combat operations. Sarah Martinez observed Dot's methodical approach to sorting donations, noting the efficiency and attention to detail that had made her the most valuable volunteer in the store's 15-year history, despite her relatively recent arrival in Millbrook and reluctance to discuss her background or previous work experience. "Dot, you're incredibly organized," Sarah commented as she reviewed the progress had made in processing the morning's donations. "Have you worked in retail before? You have professional-level skills in inventory management and customer service." Dot's response maintained the vague references to previous work experience that had satisfied curiosity without providing specific information about military service or technical specialties that had required security clearances and involved classified operations. "I've had jobs that required organization and attention to detail," Dot replied while continuing to sort clothing items according to size, condition, and seasonal appropriateness. "Working with people and helping them find what they need has always been something I enjoyed." The conversation continued with Sarah expressing appreciation for Dot's contributions to the store's operations while respecting her obvious preference for privacy about personal background and previous employment that had prepared her for volunteer work that exceeded normal expectations. As the afternoon progressed, Dot worked through the donated clothing with systematic efficiency that enabled her to process larger quantities of items than other volunteers typically managed during similar time periods, reflecting analytical skills and work habits that suggested professional training in resource management and quality control. Her approach to customer assistance also demonstrated understanding of family needs and budget constraints that indicated experience with diverse populations and challenging circumstances, though she never discussed where such experience had been gained or what situations had developed her insight into human needs and resource limitations. At 2:30 p.m., Dot was helping a young mother find school clothes for her children when her purse, which she had placed on the checkout counter, shifted and spilled some of its contents onto the floor behind the register area, where customers couldn't see the personal items that had fallen from the worn leather bag. Among the items that scattered across the floor were typical personal belongings: wallet, keys, reading glasses, and medication bottles, but also a small velvet box that had opened to reveal a silver medal suspended from a distinctive blue ribbon with white stripes that immediately caught Sarah's attention as she helped gather the fallen items. Sarah recognized the medal as military decoration despite her civilian background, understanding from television and movies that such awards represented significant military service and achievement that warranted respect and recognition. though she didn't know the specific meaning or requirements for the silver star that gleamed in the afternoon sunlight. "Ma'am," Sarah whispered quietly, holding the medal with appropriate reverence while ensuring that customers in the store couldn't overhear the conversation. "Is this yours?" Dot looked at the silver star medal in Sarah's hands with an expression that combined surprise at its accidental exposure with resignation that her careful privacy about military service had been compromised by a simple accident that revealed more about her background than she had shared during months of working at the store. "Yes," nodded simply, accepting the medal and returning it to its box with movements that reflected familiarity with the decoration and understanding of its significance, though her demeanor indicated reluctance to discuss the circumstances that had led to receiving such recognition. Sarah's knowledge of military decorations was limited, but she understood that the Silver Star represented exceptional service and heroism that warranted community recognition and respect, making her curious about Dot's military background while recognizing her obvious preference for privacy about service that had clearly been significant. "Dot, I don't know much about military medals, but I know that's something special," Sarah said with genuine respect. "Thank you for your service, whatever you did to earn that recognition." Dot's response reflected the complex relationship that many veterans experience between pride in military achievement and desire for civilian anonymity that allowed healing from combat experience while building new identity based on current activities rather than past military service. "Thank you, Sarah. Military service was important to me, but I prefer to focus on current work and helping this community rather than discussing past activities that aren't relevant to what we're doing here." The response satisfied Sarah's curiosity while maintaining appropriate boundaries about military service that are clearly considered private despite the accidental revelation of significant recognition for combat heroism or exceptional service under challenging conditions. However, Sarah's recognition of the Silver Star medal prompted questions about Dot's background that would influence their working relationship and potentially affect Dot's ability to maintain the anonymity she had sought when choosing to volunteer at the thrift store rather than pursue employment that might require disclosure of military service and specialized qualifications. Over the following days, Sarah found herself researching military decorations online, learning that the Silver Star was the third highest military combat decoration that could be awarded to members of any branch of the United States Armed Forces, recognizing gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States that was distinguished by extraordinary heroism, not warranting award of the Medal of Honor. The research revealed that Silver Star recipients had demonstrated exceptional courage under fire in situations where they had risked their lives to save others or accomplish missions that were critical to military operations and the safety of American personnel serving in combat zones around the world. Sarah's growing understanding of the Silver Star's significance made her increasingly curious about Dot's military service, while deepening her respect for someone who had clearly demonstrated extraordinary heroism but preferred to work quietly in a civilian environment that utilized different skills and provided community service without recognition or attention. The following Thursday, when Dot arrived for her regular volunteer shift, Sarah approached her with information about veteran support services and community recognition programs that honored military service while respecting individual preferences for privacy and civilian integration. "Dot, I've been thinking about veteran services in our community," Sarah began carefully, recognizing Dot's sensitivity about military service discussion. "We have programs that help veterans with employment, healthcare, and other transition needs. Would you be interested in information about resources that might be helpful?" Dot's response reflected appreciation for Sarah's concern while maintaining boundaries about military service that had enabled her successful adjustment to civilian life and community integration without constant reminders of combat experience that included traumatic events and life-threatening situations. "Thank you for thinking of me, Sarah, but I'm comfortable with my current situation and have access to appropriate healthcare and support services through the VA system. Working here provides the community connection and purpose that I need for civilian adjustment." The conversation continued with Sarah expressing support for Dot's volunteer work while acknowledging her right to privacy about military service and recognition that her contributions to the thrift store reflected valuable community service regardless of past military achievements or decorations. However, Sarah's knowledge of Dot's Silver Star medal began influencing how she viewed Dot's systematic approach to thrift store operations, recognizing that her exceptional organizational skills and customer service capabilities probably reflected military training and leadership experience that had been developed through service that warranted the nation's third-highest combat decoration. 2 weeks after the accidental medal revelation, the thrift store received an unusually large donation from a military family whose father had recently passed away, leaving boxes of uniforms, equipment, and personal items that required sensitive handling due to their military significance and emotional value to the surviving family members. Sarah realized that Dot's military background made her uniquely qualified to process the military donation appropriately. Understanding the significance of various items and ensuring that military-specific materials received respectful handling that honored the deceased veteran's service while determining appropriate disposition of items that might have value to other veterans or military museums. Would you be willing to help process this military donation? Sarah asked, recognizing that the request would require to acknowledge her military expertise while providing valuable assistance with materials that required specialized knowledge for appropriate handling. Dot examined the donated military items with obvious familiarity, immediately identifying uniform components, insignia, and equipment that required different handling procedures based on their significance, condition, and potential value to collectors, museums, or other veterans who might need military items. These dress uniforms are in excellent condition and could be valuable to veterans who need formal military attire for ceremonies or special events, Dot explained, demonstrating knowledge of military protocols and uniform regulations that reflected extensive service experience and familiarity with military culture. Her systematic approach to processing the military donation revealed expertise that exceeded basic military service, suggesting leadership positions and specialized training that had developed comprehensive understanding of military equipment, procedures, and regulations that enabled appropriate evaluation of donated items. This field equipment includes some items that might be restricted or have specific disposal requirements. Dot continued, identifying materials that civilian volunteers might not recognize as requiring special handling due to military specifications or security considerations. Sarah observed Dot's professional competence in handling military materials, recognizing that her volunteers' expertise represented valuable community resource for processing military donations and potentially assisting other veterans who might need guidance with military-related issues or transition challenges. The military donation processing revealed Dot's extensive knowledge of military equipment, uniforms, and procedures that suggested combat experience and leadership positions that had required comprehensive understanding of military operations and equipment management under challenging conditions. Over the following month, word of Dot's military expertise began spreading through Millbrook's veteran community as former service members learned that the quiet thrift store volunteer possessed knowledge and experience that could assist with military-related questions and transition challenges that affected veteran adjustment to civilian life. Veterans began visiting the thrift store specifically to consult with Dot about disability claims, uniform regulations, military history questions, and transition issues that required understanding of military culture and procedures that civilian advisors couldn't provide effectively. "Ma'am, I heard you might be able to help me understand my discharge paperwork," said James Patterson, a young Iraq veteran whose medical discharge had left him confused about benefits and support services available through the VA system. Dot's assistance with veteran questions demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of military procedures, benefits systems, and support services that reflected extensive experience with military administration and veteran affairs that enabled effective guidance for veterans navigating complex bureaucratic systems. Her systematic approach to helping veterans paralleled her thrift store customer service, focusing on identifying specific needs and providing practical assistance that enabled successful resolution of problems without unnecessary complexity or bureaucratic obstacles that might discourage veterans from pursuing appropriate support. 3 months after the accidental medal revelation, Sarah approached with a proposal that would formalize her role in assisting veterans while maintaining her preferred privacy about specific military service details and combat experience that had warranted Silver Star recognition. Would you consider establishing veteran assistance hours at the store? Sarah suggested. We could designate specific times when veterans know you're available for consultation about military-related questions and transition issues. The proposal reflected recognition that Dot's military expertise represented valuable community resource that could assist veterans while respecting her preference for civilian work environment and anonymity about specific military achievements and combat experience. Dot's response demonstrated willingness to help veterans while maintaining boundaries about personal military service that enabled her to provide assistance without discussing traumatic combat experience or specific circumstances that had led to receiving the Silver Star Medal. I'd be willing to help veterans with general questions about benefits and transition issues, Dot agreed. But I prefer to focus on practical assistance rather than discussing specific military service details or combat experience that might not be relevant to their current needs. The Veteran Assistance Program at Second Chance's thrift store began the following month, with designated hours when veterans could consult with Dot about disability claims, education benefits, healthcare services, and other transition issues that required understanding of military culture and VA procedures. The program's success attracted attention from county veteran services and local VFW posts, whose representatives recognized that Dot's approach to veteran assistance filled gaps in traditional services by providing informal consultation that respected veteran preferences for privacy while delivering effective guidance for complex bureaucratic processes. Dot's assistance helped me understand my disability rating and appeal process in ways that VA counselors hadn't been able to explain, reported Marine veteran Susan Rodriguez during a county veterans meeting. She has a gift for translating military bureaucracy into plain language that makes sense. Similar testimonials from veterans who had received assistance through the thrift store program demonstrated that Dot's systematic approach to problem-solving and comprehensive knowledge of military procedures enabled effective advocacy that helped veterans navigate systems that often seemed designed to discourage rather than assist with legitimate benefit claims. 6 months after beginning the Veteran Assistance Program, it received recognition from the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs for outstanding volunteer service that had helped hundreds of veterans successfully resolve benefits issues and transition challenges that might otherwise have remained unaddressed. The state recognition brought public attention that made Dot uncomfortable despite the positive impact of her volunteer work, reinforcing her preference for quiet service that helped others without drawing attention to her own military background and combat achievements that she preferred to keep private. However, the Veteran Assistance Program had created community recognition of Dot's expertise that made complete anonymity impossible, requiring her to find balance between helping veterans who needed guidance and maintaining privacy about personal military service that included combat experience and recognition for extraordinary heroism. A year after the accidental medal revelation, local news media learned about Dot's Veteran Assistance Program and requested interviews about her work helping veterans navigate complex benefits systems and transition challenges that affected successful civilian adjustment and community integration. Dot declined media interviews while continuing her volunteer work, understanding that publicity about her veteran assistance might help other communities establish similar programs, but preferring to avoid personal recognition that would draw attention to military service and combat experience, she considered private. Her decision to avoid media attention while continuing veteran assistance demonstrated commitment to helping others that transcended personal recognition, reflecting military values of service before self that had characterized her career and continued through civilian volunteer work that provided practical assistance without seeking acknowledgement. Today, the Veteran Assistance Program at Second Chance's thrift store continues under Dot's guidance, having helped over 800 veterans resolve benefits issues and transition challenges through systematic advocacy that combines military expertise with genuine concern for veteran welfare and successful civilian integration. Her systematic approach to veteran assistance has influenced similar programs throughout Oregon and neighboring states, with community organizations learning that effective veteran support often requires informal consultation that respects individual preferences for privacy while providing practical guidance for complex military-related issues. The thrift store continues to serve the Millbrook community while housing the Veteran Assistance Program that has become a model for community-based veteran support that honors military service while addressing practical needs that determine successful civilian adjustment and long-term community integration. Sarah Martinez continues managing Second Chances while coordinating with on veteran assistance activities that have expanded the store's mission from affordable retail to comprehensive community support that addresses both economic needs and veteran transition challenges through integrated service delivery. That taught our community that military service creates lasting obligations to help fellow veterans. Sarah reflects during interviews about the program's development and impact. Her example demonstrated that the most meaningful service often occurs quietly, performed by people who choose community contribution over personal recognition. The Silver Star Medal that accidentally revealed Dot's combat heroism remains securely stored, while her ongoing veteran assistance work demonstrates that military values and expertise continue serving others through civilian volunteer activities that address contemporary needs and challenges facing veteran communities. Mrs. Henderson, whose grandchildren had benefited from Dot's clothing assistance, became one of the program's strongest supporters after learning about her volunteers' military background and systematic approach to helping veterans navigate complex bureaucratic systems that required specialized knowledge and persistent advocacy. That helped my nephew understand his VA benefits after he returned from deployment, Mrs. Henderson explains during community meetings about veteran services. She has a way of explaining complicated things that makes them understandable, and she never gives up until veterans get the help they deserve. The recognition extends beyond individual gratitude to systematic changes in how Millbrook addresses veteran needs, with community organizations learning that effective veteran support requires both formal services and informal consultation that respects individual preferences while providing comprehensive assistance for transition challenges. Dot's influence on veteran services extends through training programs where community volunteers learn systematic approaches to veteran assistance that honor military service while addressing practical needs that determine successful civilian reintegration and long-term community contribution. The quiet volunteer who folded clothes with care proved that military heroism creates lasting obligations to serve others, demonstrating that Silver Star recipients often continue their exceptional service through civilian roles that maintain military values while addressing contemporary challenges that affect veteran welfare and community stability. Her story demonstrates that military medals represent not just past achievements, but ongoing commitments to service that transcend uniform requirements, creating opportunities for continued contribution that honors military experience while building civilian communities that support veteran success and integration. The thrift store clothing racks that she had organized with such precision continue to serve community members who understand that their volunteers' systematic approach to retail and veteran assistance reflects military training and values that enhance civilian life through quiet leadership and dedicated service to others.